Et tu, brute, the final words of a dying god. It is perhaps the most famous assassination in human history. On the Ides of March, 44 BCE, the Roman Republic didn't just lose its most powerful citizen, it effectively died with him. Julius Caesar, a name that became synonymous with power, so much so that the word Caesar became a title for emperors for centuries to come. But how did one man dismantle a political system that had stood for nearly 500 years? Was he a tyrant who murdered democracy or a visionary who saw that the republic was already broken? Today, we explore the rise, the power, and the ultimate destruction caused by Gaius Julius Caesar. To understand Caesar, you have to understand the Rome he was born into. The Roman Republic was not a modern democracy. It was a rigid, deeply stratified oligarchy controlled by a handful of elite families. Caesar was born into an old, noble family, but by his youth, they were neither wealthy nor particularly influential. He realized early on that in Rome, you did not climb the ladder of power through merit alone. You climbed it through debt, alliances, and populism. He was a master of the game. He realized that the Senate, the governing body of Rome, was corrupt, slow, and increasingly out of touch with the common people. Caesar championed the populares, the political faction that appealed to the poor, the displaced, and the soldiers, rather than the wealthy landowners who dominated the Senate. He formed the first triumvirate, a secret, illegal political alliance with Crassus, the richest man in Rome, and Pompey the Great, its most successful general. Together, they essentially owned the Republic. But alliances of convenience rarely last. Crassus died in battle, and the bond between Caesar and Pompey began to fracture. To truly challenge the establishment, Caesar needed two things: unlimited wealth and an army that was loyal to him, not the Senate. He got his chance in Gaul, modern-day France, and Belgium. For 8 years, Caesar waged war in Gaul. He didn't just fight, he wrote. His commentaries on the Gallic War were sent back to Rome, essentially functioning as a propaganda machine. The Roman public read of his bravery, his tactical genius, and his compassion for his men. He transformed his legions from a national force into a private army. These men had eaten, fought, and bled for him for a decade. If Caesar told them to march on Rome, they wouldn't ask why, they would sharpen their swords. The Senate saw what was happening. They were terrified. They realized that their champion was becoming a monster they could no longer control. They ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome to stand trial. This was the pivot point of history. In January of 49 BCE, Caesar stood on the banks of the Rubicon River. This river was the legal boundary of Italy. By bringing his army across it, he was committing treason. There was no going back. He reportedly uttered the famous words, "The die is cast." Caesar marched on Rome. Pompey and the Senate fled, leaving the city defenseless. Caesar didn't come to destroy Rome. He came to save it. He chased Pompey across the Mediterranean, fighting a brutal civil war in Greece, Egypt, and Spain. When the dust settled, Pompey was dead, and Caesar was the undisputed master of the Roman world. Caesar returned to Rome, but he didn't restore the Republic. He didn't even pretend to. He was declared dictator in perpetuity, dictator for life. He actually did a lot of good. He reformed the calendar. Yes, the Julian calendar is his legacy. He settled veterans on land, and he restructured the debt that was crushing the poor. He was a capable ruler. But he had one fatal flaw. He was arrogant. He acted like a king in a city that despised kings. He accepted divine honors. He sat on a golden throne in the Senate. He packed the Senate with his own loyalists, effectively making it a rubber stamp institution. The old guard of the Republic, men like Cassius and Marcus Brutus, saw their world ending. They looked at Caesar and didn't see a reformer. They saw a tyrant who had strangled the liberty of Rome. March 15th, 44 BCE. Caesar was warned to beware the Ides of March, but he ignored the omens. He walked into the theater of Pompey, where the Senate was meeting. The conspirators approached him under the guise of presenting a petition. Then the trap snapped shut. They swarmed him, 23 stabs. He fought back at first, but when he saw his protege, Brutus, holding a blade, he stopped. He pulled his toga over his head and collapsed at the foot of a statue of his old rival, Pompey. The conspirators thought that by killing the dictator, they would restore the Republic. They were dead wrong. They killed the man, but they couldn't kill the power vacuum. Caesar's death didn't bring back the Republic. It unleashed a new wave of civil wars that paved the way for his adopted son, Octavian, to become Augustus, the first true emperor. The Republic died, not just because of Caesar's ambition, but because the system itself had stopped working. Caesar was the final symptom of a disease that had been killing Rome for a century. Julius Caesar destroyed the Republic, yes, but in doing so, he built the foundation for the Roman Empire, a superpower that would dominate the Western world for 500 years. So, was he a villain, a hero, or just a man who saw the inevitable end of his country and decided to steer the ship rather than go down with it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the heart of Roman power, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more deep dives into the figures who shaped our world. Thanks for watching.